Welcome to Aim in Practice, where we talk about life as a practitioner, wellness in general, and what it means to practice. I'm your host, Jess Reynolds, and this week I'm sitting down with Geri. Now, Geri is an experienced practitioner who has developed a really unique way of giving massage. She's not only a massage therapist, but also a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher. At some point in time, she decided to integrate the practice of yoga nidra with massage, and she started playing yoga nidra scripts while giving her clients massage, and gradually she began to write her own scripts. And it's really interesting what she does. I'm not going to ruin it for you, you'll have to go through the episode, but how she combined these two is fascinating. And since she has started combining them in her own treatment room, she's now developed a course called Mindful Meditation Massage, where she teaches other practitioners how to do this really awesome combination. So let's just jump right into it. All right, so welcome and thank you very much for taking the time to chat. We'll start the same way that I pretty much always do, which is just a little bit of your history. What got you into the wellness space?
What got me into the wellness space? My dad was a doctor and my mom was a nurse briefly. They came from England and Germany respectively. And so I grew up talking about the body at the table. In fact, I was just having this conversation with someone this morning, how other friends would come to my house for dinner and they'd say, "Do you always talk about the body at the dinner table?" And I'm like, "You don't talk about the body at your dinner table?" So it was quite interesting how I kind of grew up in a household where we talked about things that were going on. Maybe not, super huggy family, but planted the seed for wellness. And my mom, as I grew older, I'd have some aches and pains from the various sports I was doing. And even though she didn't, maintain a lot of contact otherwise, when I had aches and pains, she would rub me. And I'm like, "Oh, this feels so good." So I had an into massage a little bit from that contact. And my dad was always, even though he was a doctor, he was always very holistic. If I'd say, "Oh, Dad, this is bugging me," thinking that maybe he'd have some medicine or something for it, he would say, "Yeah, come over here. I'll step on the other foot and we'll see if that takes your mind off of it." He's just playing with, distraction. And I found it really set the stage for my interest in the body. And when I went to university, I went into physical education because after a couple years in general studies, just because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I love to move. So I had a great time in physical education. But again, I knew I didn't want to be a teacher. And the thought of being in a loud gym with screaming kids all day long is a little intimidating. So although my husband is a phys ed teacher, and that's where our paths crossed, I then kind of thought, well, nursing.
Okay.
So my mom was a nurse. Well, she actually wasn't an actively practicing nurse in Canada at that point, but she was helping my dad in his office. And so I tried nursing for a couple of years, and that was a bit of an eye-opener. I was good at it. I liked it. I got to see my dad in action, which was really cool. Got to see him do a few surgeries. Felt very blessed by that experience. But it wasn't until the end of my second year and we were about to go into the ER rotation that that summer my stress level was going up and up and up. And I'm like, why am I so worried about this? And I realized that I'm just maybe too empathetic. And I think you hear about the horror stories in the ER. And I think I was really concerned about seeing the worst side of human nature and what people can do to each other. And some, accidents are one thing, they happen, but some of the abuse potential in the ER. And so I kind of stopped. And one of my friends said, "Well, if you're worried about it, why are you going into it? Why not take a year off and just, think about it or work in a nursing home or work in the industry to see?" And I hadn't even thought about that. I was brought up, you start something, you finish something. So I kind of thought, that's a good idea. So I took a year off and I worked in a nursing home for a year, and a lot of heavy lifting. I was like, oh, my shoulders. All the stuff I learned in phys ed, I wasn't really putting into use. And I decided I couldn't go back into nursing. I saw it in action in the nursing home, and I'm like, this is not preventative healthcare. This is reactionary healthcare, and I'm like, this is not my jam.
Yeah.
So after a year working in the nursing home, I was having a conversation with my sister, and to be honest, my sister and I are not close. I think you met her briefly. I've always tried to sort of maintain a connection with her, but we just have too big an age gap, too big a difference in opinion of life and life experience, I guess. But this is one thing I will give her full credit for in my life. And she said, she worked in the film industry. She's a costume designer. And she's like, we always have these massage therapists on set at various different shows. She's like, it seems like a pretty good gig. You can kind of pick your hours. You get paid pretty well per hour, and you don't have to work as much. She's like, why don't you think about something like that? I had considered physio, and I had applied a couple times, but at that point, you needed a 4.0 to get in, and I had like 3.75 GPA. Not good enough. So then I thought, okay, why not? I like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was sort of my route into massage therapy school. And ironically enough, I feel a little embarrassed to admit this. I had never had an official massage going into massage school. Obviously, I'd had what my mom had done, and I had been an athlete at university. And I just, as soon as she said that, a little light bulb went on in me and went, yeah, this is right. And that's how I tend to work sometimes, is when I feel something right, it doesn't matter. I don't have to do that deeper research because it's landed. So that's kind of my sideways route to being a massage therapist.
What I enjoy about the story is how it overlaps so much with a lot of other stories I've heard in one regard, and it's how many people get into the wellness space, regardless if it's massage, acupuncture, physio, chiro, whatever it is, and they say, before going into it, I didn't actually ever get acupuncture, or I only got chiro once when I was a kid. It's like there was no previous experience, and yet there's that like inner voice, that inner sensation that says, yeah, you need to move in this direction and do that. It's weirdly common. Sure, I've heard a lot of stories of people being like, no, I got a massage and I fell in love with it, or I've been doing acupuncture since I was a kid. Yeah, I hear those, but I'd say probably half of the time, maybe less than half the time, it's a very similar story. I wonder what's with that. Like how people who get drawn into this don't actually have the personal experience receiving the type of wellness that they're interested in. Not sure what the answer is, but can you tell me about what the pull was? You kind of said it felt right. And getting to know you as I have, I'm really curious to understand what that's like for you when something feels right.
It's kind of, it's like there's something lights up inside you where you go, yeah, this could work. Obviously there is the analytical part of your brain going, oh, yeah, you can pick your own hours. I was almost settling down with my husband, and of course thinking about a family and how you can maybe make some money on the side but also raise a family. So there, in the back of my mind, picking my own hours, but working one-on-one with people in a way where you actually got to focus on prevention. I think, obviously I went into the school, I registered for it, I went into the school, and it was within the first 2 weeks that I knew. So, of course it felt right, but then I went to the school and, I was on the table, I'd been doing a lot of lifting and stuff, and the teacher chose me as her demo model, and she tried to move my right shoulder, and she's like, oh, we need to work on this right shoulder a little bit. And I'm like, oh, really? And, so I had recognized it was starting to give me a little trouble, but, we get pretty good at ignoring things until they slap us upside the face. Those first 2 weeks, we were hands-on right from the beginning. So I had partners who didn't know what they were doing. I had some partners who kind of knew what they were doing. We were just massaging each other's back every day for 2 weeks, and my shoulder pain went away. I'm like, if it can be that effective with someone who doesn't know what they're doing, just the hands-on energy transfer, then I'm in. Like it feels like it just opened the door to possibility. Part of it energy, part of it physical manipulation. And I think that sometimes felt like what was missing in nursing. It was also analytical. And, my dad was excellent at what he did. He had he had the soft skills. He had the bedside manner, but that wasn't focused on a lot. So naturally, it kind of just rolled into massage because you are working with people one-on-one, and you can create a nurturing environment where they feel welcome and it's safe. So I guess that's sort of answering your question.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah. And something else came up, which is this idea of preventative medicine, right? Your experience working in the nursing home really sounds like it shone a light on how the medical system, which is called healthcare and what I refer to as sick care, is not necessarily the best system for you. I mean, we could talk about all of the problems with it, but I don't think it's necessary. What I'm more interested in is talking about your interest in preventative medicine and how that I guess passion, if we could use that word, has influenced how you treat. So when you're treating somebody, are you thinking this thing I'm doing right now is preventative, or this thing I'm doing is fixing an issue? How does that affect your approach to your sessions?
That's a really good question. Obviously, there's talk during massage sessions, and some clients have a lot they need to dump on you as a therapist. So some of their physical tension is probably coming from their life tension. So sometimes letting them vent as a therapist is what's needed for them. They just need someone to hear them without judgment. Sometimes they actually want your advice because they come from a different sort of background and they want a different perspective. Any advice given is, always prefaced by, well, in my experience, I am not a professional in this field. Obviously you can go see a professional to get help done, and I do, if I really feel like they need it, I will encourage them to seek out other help. But a lot of times it's just conversation like you have with friends, where you go, hey, have you tried this? Just offering up suggestions, helping change the channel on their perspective. So we all know that we get stuck in ruts in our thinking patterns. And sometimes when someone else just looks at it from a different perspective, you have an aha moment where you're like, oh, I actually can think about that differently. So I think just creating that place where they feel safe and heard allows them to physically relax a little bit deeper. Obviously, all the tools we pull in, whether you use gua sha tools or the cups or deep tissue therapy or trigger point therapy, all of those have their place. And they are all very effective when, let's face it, you have a shoulder pain from overuse and it's strictly because of the mouse position in your computer. Obviously, those definitely play a part. But I think it's a little bit more treatment of the whole that seems to shine. And how do I tell when people come in? Well, I ask them how they are. Yeah. Obviously, you do the, you can do the physical assessment, but, the mental assessment is also part of the process. And that's honestly, if I have someone coming in and they're just physically exhausted and they just need to be held, that's one of the reasons why I'll get them on the table and I go, you know what? We're gonna let you experience mindful meditation massage today because that's a perfect place for you to be. Yeah. And a lot of times they're like, what is that? There's a little bit of anxiety around trying something new. And I'm like, we've been, therapist clients for long enough. Just trust me on this. Let it carry you and see where you can go.
I want to talk more about that because I'm really interested in this idea of mindful meditation massage for a lot of reasons. One of the biggest is my shared understanding with you of the fact that what we're doing on the table has the technical component, which after a certain number of years is kind of implicit knowledge and memory. You don't have to think about how to do trigger point therapy. You don't have to think about how to do these techniques. So it's just kind of stuck in the implicit memory. So the technical aspect of what we do in the treatment room counts for something, but not nearly as much, in my opinion, as the other stuff, which I think mindful meditation is a great summary of what that other stuff is. It's how we can without crossing any professional boundaries and without working outside of scope of practice, start to include more of this body-mind connection and work with the individual's, energetic existence. Or I'm hesitant to say their psychology because I don't want to say we're doing any psychological stuff, but no, their psyche, like we're affecting other parts of them. So let's move in that direction. Let's talk about mindful meditation massage. And I suppose first, can you just tell us, what is it?
What is it? Okay. So first of all, I'd like to clarify that it's not actually mindful meditation massage, but it's a combination of mindfulness plus meditation plus massage. So, maybe a little bit of an unfortunate naming in that a lot of people make that assumption immediately. But, the reality is mindfulness is sort of big now. And sometimes I'm like, maybe we need to consider another approach. But I like the three M's together kind of drew me into that. Oh, yeah, because that's how you feel when you get off the table. You kind of go, So the history of it. I had a client. I was doing my yoga teacher training back in 2016. I had gone into it with a little bit of hesitation because I'm not a flexible person, physically. I mean, I think in other parts of my life, I'm fairly flexible, but I've always been really stiff. I've loved yoga. I've loved practicing yoga. But the reality is I have deep hip sockets. There's no way sitting in a wide angled pose is comfortable for me at the best of times. And I thought, well, if I work on it, it'll get better. No, you can't overcome the physical barriers. That I learned in a hurry. But I found critical alignment yoga to be a form of yoga that really spoke with my body tension that I had built up, over at that point. I guess it would have been just over 20 years of massage. And I needed a little bit more for self-care to, help me last a little longer. So I found critical alignment yoga. I was studying it, and we had a teacher come in and introduce us to Yoga Nidra. And at the very beginning of the Yoga Nidra portion, she gave us a recording to work with, and we were supposed to work with this. The course I took was spread out over 6 months. So I liked the fact that it was just, every weekend or every other weekend, and we had breathing time to process some of the stuff. So I started working with this Yoga Nidra concept and the whole idea of a sankalpa, or an intention. She's like, you work with it. Some people it's a month, some people it's 6 months, but you find an intention that resonates with you and you work on it daily by planting that seed into your subconscious mind. And I thought, okay, I'm intrigued by this. I want to test this. This is how I tend to work. As I try things on for a while, and if it works for me, I'm like, okay, I'm all in. But if it doesn't work for me, I'm like, I'm a skeptic. Are
you the type of person too, like once you've tried it on and you've given a shot and you're on board, then you're like, okay, listen, everybody in my life, I need to tell you, this is the thing you need to I'm definitely that way.
Oh yeah, totally. But the problem is not everyone listens to you.
Yeah, of course.
That's always the problem, including my husband. He's not always so open to some of these things, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
I like someone pushing my boundaries a little bit too. So, so anyhow, my intention for myself was I am flexible. I'm like, let's give this a real run for its money. So I thought, and I thought in my mind, I'm like, obviously I'm not talking about, personality and life and stuff. I want this to be, my body is gaining flexibility. So I really want to try this on to see if I can plant that seed to change my mind around my physical flexibility. And so for anyone who's ever done critical alignment in yoga, there's 4 basic props. We have a black strap, we have a felt pad, there's a head standing bench, and then there's a back bending bench. And the back bending bench looks like a device of torture.
Yeah, it kind of is.
It's kind of curves. And so what you do a lot of is you go upside down in the head standing bench, and then you put the back bending bench against the wall, and you try to drop your butt over the head standing bench towards the wall, which really gives you a deep back bend. And when I first started doing critical alignment yoga, I think when we did that, I moved about an inch.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's it. That's all my body's capable of doing. There's no hope my butt is ever touching that wall. So months go by. I'm practicing my Yoga Nidra, and we're getting close to the end of the yoga teacher training. And I'm like, this whole meditation thing, I'm not sure about it. I had a day where I was bumping up against a lot of resistance in class. And I was like, you know what? it's not working for me. I don't believe in it. This is the final day. I'm pitching it. If it's not, give me a sign that this has worked the last 6 months. And literally we did that one move with the back bending bench against the wall that day. And, I had so much frustration and anger in me. And I'm like, okay, this is the true test. We went up and we started dropping the butt over the bench towards the wall, and my butt touched the wall.
Okay.
And I went, oh my gosh. Like, I almost fell out of the pose because it happened so gradually.
Yeah.
I didn't feel it happening. And I as soon as I came down, again, the light bulb went on and went, okay, my body actually believes that I can be flexible on some physical level now. So I'm like, I can move on to my next intention. And I was so excited about it. I was like, wow, I thank you for proving me wrong, because I love to be proven wrong sometimes. And so then I was like, okay, I want to study more about meditation.
Okay.
So I signed up for an intensive in meditation, and I was working with that, and I had a client. She came into me during that time and she said, my doctor says I need to relax. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, is there any way we could maybe do some kind of a meditation with a massage? And I'm like, yes, perfect timing. I'm like, I got options for you. So she's a snowbird. She often would go away and then come back and, see me intensively for a few months and then go away. So we got to work together for probably a couple months. And she'd come in and she'd go, I have this recording. Can we try this? And we'd put the meditation on. We're like, it doesn't work. And then I'm like, let's put some mantras on because they're very repetitive. Let's try that. And it just didn't do it. And then I'm like, well, I really like the Yoga Nidra. I've been working with that a lot because for, dare I say, type A personalities, I tend to like direction. I can't just meditate, clear my mind and everything's happy-go-lucky and I'm fine and dandy.
Right.
I need a little bit of direction or a little bit of nudging. My brain likes to latch on to something and then I can work with it. And what I loved about the Yoga Nidra is it kind of took you from the physical layer to the breath layer to the emotional layer and then just into a nice deep, visualization and wrapped it up. And so I put on one of my mentors' Yoga Nidras that was about an hour long, the time of her session, and she was gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we got something here. And so we did that a few times, and then I'm like, it just doesn't jive with my massage quite right.
Right, okay.
So then we kind of decided, well, what if I wrote a meditation that actually kind of guided the massage a little bit along with the meditation?
I'm with you. Okay.
So what I played with, and it seemed to work really well. So the initial one was, it kind of came out so well. I didn't have to actually re-record or do much with it. It was remarkable. Was about the first half of the session is either prone or supine. And it does the rotation of awareness through the body for about the first half. And then you flip over and then you do the breathing work and the emotional work and the final visualization.
Okay. So it would be like, let's just imagine somebody's lying prone.
Yes.
Starting massage that way. You've made a recording of yourself where you're reading through the script, essentially, the meditation script. And then does it follow along? So doing the progressive relaxation, during the script, you might say something like, focus on your foot, relax muscles in your foot. Are you simultaneously, as the practitioner, are you working on the foot at the same time? So there's the synchronization between... Yes. Okay, that makes sense.
So, and part of that was to, often when you're maybe doing Yoga Nidra and you bring your attention into your right palm, which is often where we start, some people have a hard time getting their focus there because maybe they're not as embodied. They're not as able to get their focus to certain body parts. So in my mind, I'm like, well, if you have hands on the same body part as you're supposed to bring attention there, it'll be that much easier to really feel into that body part. So that first half is basically a really long check-in with the full physical body.
That is so great.
But it really does bring people into their bodies or into that floaty place,
Yeah.
that in between conscious brainwave states and
I
subconscious.
think I might be a little like you in regards to I can't just sit down with either nothing or gentle music and drop into a meditative state. I mean, I say that I can. I'm sure I could. But in regards to types of meditation, that's the least effective type of meditation for myself. Doing a guided meditation or a yoga nidra, those are like my tops. Actually, one more than that is running. For some reason, once I'm running, I get into the most meditative state I could possibly imagine. But aside from that, I do need the guidance to do so. And what I find interesting about what you're saying is I say there's running and then there's a guided meditation. Immediately after that, as far as a meditative state, it's receiving a massage. Without the guidance, it's like very few things bring me into the present moment and give me a locus of focus as much as receiving a really good massage.
Yeah.
And that process for me started, it's like, I don't want to miss this. Because I don't know if you've done this, but in massage, it's like, it feels so good. You kind of tune out, you kind of fade them. Nothing wrong with that. But then I'll come back and I'll be like, I missed it. I missed my right shoulder. Like, that's my favorite part of the massage. Like, dang it. I lost presence and I missed this amazing experience. So whenever I would receive a massage, I'd be like, okay, for an hour, I'm staying present and focused. So I can only imagine how powerful it would be if there was verbal guidance in the way that you're doing the recordings, as well as the physical guidance in the massage. What a powerful combination.
I think especially for people who aren't really present in their bodies, it does bring them more into that connected state. I also find, and I often tell people, it's actually like having a holiday from your brain. Because a lot of times when people are silent on the table, they're going through, what am I making for dinner? When am I picking up the kids? What else do I have going on tonight? They don't unplug their brain at all. Whereas, and I think maybe this is more true of women. I mean, obviously some men are definite planners. But I think when someone else takes charge or there's someone else to listen to and they're kind of guiding you to do certain things, you just so happily go, oh, thank goodness someone else is taking charge. I can just relinquish the reins for this time and try to follow the direction. So yeah, there's sort of, and then you let go of the busy brain status and you're exploring new pathways. So, I mean, the physical aspect of checking in with your body and going, where do things feel bad? But then moving into the breath work. And a lot of times with the breath work, I'll even, not always, but depending on the meditation, place hands on the rib cage so that they have to actually breathe up into your hands. And so that you're trying to guide them to breathe more expansively than they might normally breathe, which, a lot of women are very shallow breathers, men too, but women a little more so, I think. So, there's, and that's where the mindful part of the meditation comes in. As a therapist, you're listening to the meditation too. You're riding with the client on the meditation and you're adding extra cues to just deepen the experience. So yeah, the breath work and then even the emotional or the physical body contrasts. A lot of times we'll start with simpler ones like hot and cold. And, when I've previously taught this course, on mindful meditation massage, I've used, muscle rubs that have a little bit of heat in it, muscle rubs that have a little bit of mint in it. And, you can just add that into the mix a little bit just to help them really generate those feelings, to just sort of create a little bit more of an experiential to the body.
That's brilliant. I mean, because when we talk about people coming in, I hate to make things so binary, but typically speaking, you have the people coming with a problem, shoulder, neck, knee, whatever it is, even stress. And then you have the people coming in for relaxation. And the people coming in for a problem, in my opinion, it's like the thing that's actually going to fix the problem is the relaxation. So it's like no matter what, we end up in this, you need to relax in order to either accomplish what you came for, I want to relax, or to actually get to the root of the issue. And getting them to really be in their body and experience it, it's really challenging to do, particularly with that group of people who are like, just fix my shoulder, right? But then being with that shoulder and kind of being in the experience of having a stiff shoulder and making sure they stay present with that experience. My experience as a practitioner has been, it's so much more effective, right? So to think that you've come up with this really cool tool that is just built in, like that's part of the experience. And I really like how you use that word, the experience of getting a massage. It's like something you leave with a memory of, like a story to tell. I went and I had this hour and I don't know where I went, like it really is an experience.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, actually, because obviously as a practitioner, we're well aware of most people saying, I have this sore shoulder and, I need you to fix it. I forget the full body. I don't need that. I just want my shoulder fixed. I'm part of the reason why I'm an active person is because my body gets tight and sore very easily from sitting still too long. And a lot of it's probably too much of this going on in the head. So I went on a meditation retreat for a week, and it was just out in Bragg Creek, but I chose to stay on site because I just wanted to see what it would be like to be on site in a meditation retreat for a full week without, thinking about feeding the kids and getting them to their activities and all that fun stuff. And I found it really, really interesting because usually when I was in my teacher training class, I'm constantly changing position. I'm constantly rearranging the bolster and the props and stuff to try and find a more comfortable position because my body gets sore easily. But with the meditation retreat, where we were starting the day with an hour-long yoga nidra and finishing the day with at least an hour-long nidra, and then sometimes we'd have a sound bath or we'd have other things going on, and in between there was a lot of talking about various different topics. I was like, oh, this is going to be a really tough week for my body, just sitting and not walking and moving, and not a lot of yoga practice. I found remarkably after the first couple days that my body was relaxed. I actually could sit quite comfortably. And I started recognizing that, all the tension in my body is mostly just all the things in life that I feel like I need to deal with. Yeah. And so it builds up. So again, sort of experiencing that firsthand was really instrumental to me kind of going, okay, you hear about this. We've all heard about it. If you can relax your brain, your body will relax too. But to actually get to experience it. So my husband was a great guinea pig, because of course, as I would do the meditations, I'm like, I need someone to get on the table so I can figure out the timing, if this works. He was always ready and willing. And a lot of times he has upper back issues. And so, getting in there and doing the deep work, I would still incorporate the deep tissue work while I was doing it. But usually when I do deep tissue work on him, he'd kind of resist a little bit. So I'd have to, slow down a little bit, ease into it a little bit, and then, get better results. But as soon as I put the meditation on, he was so far gone, I could do the deep tissue work with very little resistance. And he didn't know the difference because his brain was somewhere else. Yeah. Instead of right in the pain, resisting the pain, which is what we kind of tend to do. Yeah. So when he was, being elsewhere, and he would get off the table going, wow, that was amazing. I'm like, what do you think about the script? And he'd go, I don't remember anything. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's good. For some people it's on and off. And for others, there's various shades of, various levels of how deep you're going to drop. But so often people are like, I don't want to do a full body relaxation massage because I want my shoulders to be worked on. And I'm like, well, once I know the flow of the meditation, I can quite easily, instead of working on your neck when it's going up the neck, you can visualize that while I continue working on your right shoulder. As long as you're not going to be, distracted by the fact that I'm not in the same place as my voice is guiding you to. But usually when you're that far gone, you don't even have an awareness of that discrepancy. So that's what I've, come to use it as for a lot of my clients is, we'll still do a little deep tissue work on the areas you need, but let's unplug your brain so that you fully get, into that place of relaxation. And I know there's a few people who don't like it. And I think they're maybe more on the control freak spectrum.
I'd be interested with those people because I do hypnotherapy as well. Okay. And I have yet to come across, I shouldn't say that, there's actually been one person I've been incapable of facilitating a trance state. I don't like to say hypnotize because I'm not really doing anything. I'm just facilitating. Just the same thing, right? Like the state somebody
Mediator.
is, what you just described that they get into, that's a hypnotic state, in no matter which way you cut it. But there's only been one person I've had a hard time getting into this state or helping get into that state. And it was somebody who, by their nature, is a pure contrarian. Just built into them for whatever reason. It's like you say left, they're going to go right. Even if going right means they're going to fall off a cliff. It's like, so with the contrarian personalities, I wonder if those people that have a hard time, it's they just have a visceral objection to even somebody suggesting what they should do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's just some other technique for them. Maybe there's something else. But interesting how you would have come across them. Now, what I did find fascinating about what you described is how similar what you're describing is to a hypnotherapy practice, with one big difference, and that's hands-on. Like with hypnotherapy, when I first started practicing it, no hands-on. But now I've started including it with many of my acupuncture sessions. Slightly different, right? Like I'm not doing the hands-on stuff. But what I'm thinking is, like in TCM, we've got this point, and this point is supposed to calm the mind, and then this point is supposed to do this. And I kind of work that into the script. So there seems to be a little bit of an overlap. But I'm very deliberately using hypnotherapy language in a hypnotic trance state and stuff like that. So I'd be curious if we could explore the overlap between the approaches of Yoga Nidra versus hypnotherapy, and maybe get some of the best of both worlds. I'd be curious about that.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating, and it's powerful. I mean, it's just like using acupuncture points when someone's in labor. You know, to just. One of my best friends in Germany had a difficult first birth. And so I went over there to help her with her second child because, being a good friend, you think showing up with your essential oils and your room sprays and your massage techniques, you'll be able to help them out. I didn't help out much because she was already prepared. She's that kind of person. She had chosen the different kind of hospital to go to, and they used acupuncture. So when she went into labor, they went in and, they were putting needles in all the points that help things relax and help them relax. And her baby came out just like that and didn't even look. Dare I say, when you've seen a few newborns born, they often look squished and a little bit traumatized from the experience. This baby looked like a week old, it looked like it was just a really gentle, the hot water and the whole environment. I was just like, oh my goodness, I wish we had hospitals like that at home. I mean, I was just jealous. But I think we're not tapping into enough overlap between things to really get some powerful health experiences.
When most of us are kids, I'm sure there's some exceptions, one of the first nursery rhymes we all learn, right? The foot bone's connected to the leg bone, right? We sing it through the whole body. And it's like the first thing you learn when you're a kid is things are connected. The whole body's good. And then we just kind of forget about it as a silly little nursery rhyme. But the reason I bring it up is because when I'm working on a client and they say, I've got a headache, and I start putting a needle in the bottom or on their foot, and they're like, I said a headache, not a footache. I'll start singing that song, like the foot bone's connected to the leg bone. Let's just follow that all the way up because the body is connected. And it's unfortunate that there is this disconnection, that we have to justify the fact that, yes, you're coming in for a headache or a shoulder pain, but you're a whole being. You're not a collection of parts. You're not an arm and a shoulder. You're a person who has different aspects of self that we've decided to name different just because it makes conversation easier, right? Like having to explain that is unfortunate. I think it would be amazing if somehow we can start to make it more commonly accepted or commonly known, like that you have to treat the whole body. You can't just treat a part. If that would work, our medical system probably wouldn't be failing the way it is, right? If we started to look at a whole being instead of, you've got stomach problems, let me give you a proton pump inhibitor and problem solved. Like that's trying to fix a part instead of the whole being. Yeah. And again, bringing it back to what you're doing with mindful meditation massages, it really does sound like the overarching theme here is you're treating a whole person. And now I mean that on a deeper level, then you're not just treating their whole body, you're treating the whole person. Integrative medicine is considered to be treating body, mind, and soul. That's what integrative medicine means. And that's actually the technical definition. And it sounds exactly what you're doing, body, mind, soul, all aspects of a client when they come in. And I can't see how that would do anything but solve a localized problem, right?
Yeah, I find it's quite powerful. I'm just getting my head around some of the things you said. I spent, I don't know how much time explaining to my clients, well, if your right shoulder is bugging you, your left hip is probably bugging you too, because it's compensating. And, I spend a lot of time explaining to them why we have referrals in the body. But on a bigger, this is just me probably going off topic a little bit. One of my philosophies for life, I was just in a mini yoga retreat on the weekend, and we were talking about, a connection kept coming up, foot bone's connected to the leg bone. But on a larger scale, we think of ourselves as so separate entities. Right. And I just brought up with my little triad I was working in that way back in when I was studying biology, when I was at university, I just remember driving down the road and seeing a dotted line between lanes and thinking that's a semi-permeable membrane versus the impermeable membranes, and how biology spills out into life. And, a lot of the constructs we have in society are actually, obviously sort of partly related to what we've grown up with, or maybe many, many years ago, interacting with nature. And I kind of sometimes look at humanity as a whole as a human, one large human. And you might be a lung cell and I might be a liver cell. Yes, we're individual entities that have different jobs to do. But if we don't work together, then humanity as a whole doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's just one vision that comes to me constantly when I get frustrated with, things not working, things breaking down, systems, the medical system not serving us very well, is because we're not being holistic in our approach to it. So yeah, it's an overarching theme for sure. Yeah. And I guess, as I was getting older and a little wiser, maybe take a little pressure off my hands, I was thinking, how to bring a little bit more of a new aspect into treatments. Because some people, when they get on the table and they start talking, they want to talk about their problems. You can feel their body getting tighter as the session goes on, not looser. And you're like, I am breaking my thumbs on you. How do I get this person to let go? I have a sauna in my treatment room. And for some people, I'm like, shut them in the hot box for half an hour before they get on the table. Yeah. That'll unplug their brain a little bit. It sort of worked, but not enough. So when I came up with this, and my client as a guinea pig, she just loved it. She was, both her daughters come to me now, and she, I often thank her for it, because she just came in with the idea. I'd always thought I'd really like to play meditations while people come in and get on the table, but how do I introduce them to it? So to have one specific person that I could work with, and then, a number of other guinea pigs that were willing, i.e. my family members, to get on the table anytime, it just allowed us to sort of start to refine, a little bit more of a held space and approach to it.
I find that the demeanor of the practitioner in the room dictates the direction of the treatment quite a bit, right? And I know that for myself, when a session is over and I walk out of the treatment room and I've got that like that zened out feeling in my body, I could be pretty much guaranteed that the client does too. So there are these certain times, it doesn't happen every session by any means, but those times when it's like you really drop into a state of flow. And using that word flow state, like technically speaking, there are parts of your brain that's offline. And what I find interesting about athletes who go into flow state is pretty much universally they'll use the words, I'm one with the whatever. If they're a surfer, I'm one with the wave, man, or a climber. I just felt like I was part of the mountain. Pretty much everybody who gets into a flow state, and that's actually the definition of flow state, is there is a lack of self-referential thought. And I find it's very similar to when you're in a flow state in a massage, right? You get rid of this self-referential thought, and there is no me client, me. It's like you're just experiencing this united state of existence, as strange as that sounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what came to mind when you're talking about how we're all different cells, like humans can really interact. I think a treatment room is a beautiful place to sort of separate that division, to really get rid of client therapist. It's just two sort of nervous systems, if we could say that, interacting and finding co-regulation and coherence with each other. So where I was going with this is, I think it's inarguable that the state of the practitioner is going to play a huge role on the overall outcome of the treatment. And it sounds even more so if one's going to engage in mindful meditation massage. So my question to you then is, somebody comes in, they book a mindful meditation massage, and you just got out of an argument with whoever, like, what are you doing so you can walk into that room and you can make sure that this session is good, like that you're not distracted, that you're able to drop into the mindful meditation space?
Good question. To be honest, sometimes I can't. Most of the time, because I've listened to it and my brain has got those grooves sort of, ingrained now, I can drop out of that state of arousal a little bit faster. But sometimes I do find I'm like, oh my gosh, my mind is wandering. But it's usually the first 5-10 minutes until the nervous system calms down a little bit. And because the music is repetitive and the meditation is repetitive, naturally your immune system, your nervous system does seem to begin to calm down and you start to become more present. But there are some times when there's really something that's front and foremost in my brain where you're just like, I have to deal with that, where I don't feel like I'm giving the best massage. And I've actually come out of a room going, oh, they're going to say, what was wrong with you today? You weren't really on your game. That just reminded me of a really funny story. But they come on and they go, wow, that was awesome. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, it's not all about me.
Right.
Right. Absolutely. I bring a huge portion to the room, but if they've done the meditation a few times and they feel comfortable in the space with that half of it is they're doing their work. Yeah. And I'm, hopefully supporting them. So, it does, obviously you come out feeling a little bit guilty, but we're human and we have to acknowledge that some days we're not going to be the best support person.
I really, really appreciate that transparency, because I think that's an important reality. It's like, if one is willing to accept the fact that as a practitioner, your mental state, your emotional state is going to affect your client, if you're willing to jump on board with that, which I think we all should, then that begs the question, what do you do when you're just having a really crappy day? And I think you just acknowledge it and you do your absolute best anyways. Don't try to ignore it. Don't try and pretend like it's not happening. Just go into it being aware of that reality in yourself. And like you said, if you're doing that work and your client is doing their part in it, it's still probably going to be an awesome session. It is good as it could be, hard to say, but I do appreciate that reality check. Like you don't have to be like on your perfect game every single session to be able to deliver a really good quality treatment.
Yeah, striving for perfection is an exercise in futility. Yeah. I have learned over the years. So, certainly there are things. I have some flower essences that I'll often take, and room sprays that I use, and just a few things if I have time to sort of try to settle my mind, like little mini meditation before people come in. There are tools I certainly use, but sometimes it's just you've got busy brain happening and you're not getting off the train to that thought destination. So for sure.
Now, a bit of a left turn here is earlier on in our conversation, you were saying you started out your education by phys ed teaching, right? And you said, you didn't really want to be teaching, and then in particular teaching a bunch of rowdy kids. What I'm curious about is, so early on in your life, you had this idea that you didn't want to teach, and yet now with mindful meditation massage in particular, and of course you've taught cupping and I'm sure other massage things in the past. You're a teacher. How do you approach this role as teacher?
When I was in school, when we had to get up and do presentations, I hated it. Always super nervous ahead of time. Even teaching, when I finally got to a place in my career where I was approached about teaching cupping, I was really nervous about it. I said, only small classes because I really like to have a personal connection with people. I didn't want to, get into a large class scenario and, I needed a little bit of support just so that I could feel comfortable. But my husband would often come to those first sessions. He'd be my demo body or various other things because he's a permanent teacher and he loves it. He's like, wait until she gets into her passion. When she starts talking about something she's excited about, she'll be good. Because, otherwise I'm quite soft-spoken and I don't like to be the center of attention. But once I get going about something I really like or believe in, then, there's a sense of, okay, I'm here for the right reason and I don't mind overcoming some of that introverted tendencies to share something that I think needs to be heard or needs to be shared. So yeah, as much as, teaching routing kids in a loud gym was totally not my passion. After years and years of working in the massage industry, you get to a point where you're like, okay, do I change into a new profession or do I give back? Right. And I got to the point where I'm like, I think people need to experience some of the things I've learned. And so, I had evolved from just hands-on work to glass cupping with the fire for many years, and then to, the hand pump cups and then the silicone cups and, playing with different modalities over the years just to become a better therapist so that you could get to your clients, issues that much faster, incorporating Thai massage and a lot of these things just made me create a whole new way of dealing with the body. And I kind of thought, what? There could be some really good therapists out there that don't have to spend 15 years getting to the point that, that you learn all this stuff on their own. So it'd be great to impart that just to maybe give or leave a little legacy for the profession before I'm done with it. So that I think is probably why I came to this. And then when I started the mindful meditation massage, I'm like, this is like a mini holiday. So often people go, oh, it must be nice you're going for a massage. I'm like, it's not just, it must be nice. It's needed. People need to unplug their brains a little bit.
They do. I think I was actually just talking with Brianna about this yesterday, and I talk about it often. It's like they need to unplug their brain, but I think they also just need someone to put some hands on them, right? Like that physical, and in particular, and I'll emphasize this, that non-sexual touch form of physical contact. It's like, it's not must be nice. It turns out it's actually required. I mean, we all know the studies about infants not receiving touch. It's the same for adults, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that stigma of, oh, it must be nice. It should be like, you're missing out on something that your body actually needs. So maybe you should consider this. It is nice for sure, but it's also needed.
I often say, how many things can you do that are really good for you that also feel nice?
Right.
Like there's not that many things that people...
That's a great question.
Actually, like a lot of times, sure, I love moving my body. I love physically challenging myself and I like that feeling. But most people are like, it's work, so they resist it a little bit. So they don't want to do it because they have to work hard to get that bonus afterwards. But massage, if you have a good therapist, obviously can feel really good along with benefiting your nervous system, your whole physical structure at the same time. So, I think it's kind of win-win that way.
You mentioned, and I completely agree. There's a huge qualifier there. If you have a good massage therapist, which then begs the question that I ask everybody: what makes a good massage therapist?
Yes, isn't that the truth? It's bigger than most people think. I have a great example. The school I went to, there was another girl, and I were sort of top of the class. She had better marks than I did. So she graduated with 98% average or something. She was all up here. I can tell you, you pick your favorite people to exchange with within the first couple of weeks of massage school. You just know these are my people. She was not one of them. She was one of those people that literally had no awareness of where her body was in space. So she would run her elbow up your spine when she was massaging you. And you're just like, how are you supposed to relax when you're worried about, bone on bone contact in inappropriate places? And it was ineffective. Her physical hands-on work was ineffective. But she knew exactly all of her anatomy. She knew everything from an intellectual level. But the thing about massage therapy is it's a combination between soft skills and hard skills, and you have to meet in the middle. And I know I've been to a few courses where I thought, you know what? That this instructor brought up a really good point. They said, learn all of those skills, learn all the assessment stuff, get really into that. Sure, graduate, and then spend the next 3 years unlearning them so that you can tap back into your intuition and you can tap back into what feels good. And you have to sort of become whole again. So instead of spending too much time in the right brain or the left brain, you've got to find the middle ground and be able to cross back and forth a little bit. Kind of like educational kinesiology. You want to incorporate both sides of the brain. And so often things we do in our world tend to be one hemisphere dominant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found that so fascinating because I'm like, well, technically she should, she's graduating top of her class. She should be able to walk into any job anywhere. That's how our brains think of things, or we've been taught that our education system should work. But there's a blending that has to happen. And unfortunately, I'm like, hopefully she goes into admin work, or maybe just teaching technical skills, but not hands-on.
Yeah. Yeah. So a blend between the soft skills and hard skills. Yeah. Is that teachable, do you think?
To the right person.
To the right person? Okay.
And yeah, I think it's teachable to people who are open to it. I mean, and that sort of, the right person who's willing to recognize that it's not just about their hands. And I think a lot of people burn out fairly quickly, probably because they get bored without being able to integrate their whole person into the treatment.
Ooh, I like that. So it sounds like integrating your whole person is an incredibly important characteristic of a successful massage therapist. Am I misconstruing your intentions? No. Yeah, I like that. Integrating your whole person. Authenticity, I think, is incredibly important. I talk about that when I teach about this course I call the Tao of massage, or essentially bringing Taoism into Chinese into the treatment room, talking about how without authenticity, you're not as skillful of a practitioner. The Tao sages said that, like a good practitioner, a sage-like practitioner, first and foremost, is authentic. And they make that very clear, like the most important characteristic isn't your ability to diagnose or prescribe the appropriate herbs in the case of TCM. It's that you're walking into the room as you, wholly you and completely you.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. When the same client that I sort of wrote the first meditation massage for, she walks into my room and she says, I love that you haven't changed anything in your space. She says, this is my sanctuary. She might be gone for 6 months, but she's like, this is my sanctuary. And I'm like, interesting, because I was just thinking about changing things. But then I took the words and I the little stick-on letters, and I put sanctuary over the mirror in my bedroom, in my massage room, because I just thought, I have to recognize that for people that live crazy busy lives, they sometimes need something that's static and stable and where they feel safe and held. I think that's really the essence of taking a good therapist with the hard skills and making them into a great therapist is, for them to create a space where their clients feel truly welcome and safe.
Right.
Yeah.
So it would be learn the hard skills, which we do in school.
Absolutely.
Get that stuff figured out. And then once you've not even mastered, but become proficient in hard skills, to go from good to great would be make a place that's safe, develop a safe place, bring your whole being into the treatment room, be authentic, those types of things.
Mindful.
Yeah, mindful.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great point to tie a bow on our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
thank you. I really, really appreciate your insights. And I'm looking forward to working more with this whole mindful meditation massage thing. It seems
Awesome.
pretty amazing. So thanks again.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Cool.